Hey friends, so today I'm going to be showing you how to do the stitch pattern for the amethyst sweater. This is a perfect beginner garment if you're new to knitting, or if you're not new to knitting and you're just looking for something really fast to make up. This sweater is absolutely perfect. It comes in sizes extra small all the way to 5X, and it's so easy. As you can see, I made it up in the Lion Brand Scarfy yarn. You don't necessarily have to make it in that yarn yourself. You could use something that is comparable in size and weight. But I really just love the gradual color change that comes in the Scarfy yarn, and they have lots of different color options. And then also too, this is the Irish moss stitch, and I just love the texture. I think it's just absolutely beautiful, and I love the way that it works up. So if you are wanting to make the amethyst sweater, settle in, make sure you hit the links down below to get yourself access to the patterns, and we're going to dive right in. So to begin this, we're going to do a long tail cast on. Now, if you're making a specific size, it will be noted down in the pattern exactly how many you need to cast on for every size. So be sure you go down to the description box and you click over to find which size you want to make to get all of the specs and everything. So I'm just going to make a swatch for today because, in all honesty, all 4 panels are made exactly the same way. This is just simply to teach you how to do the stitch, and then also I'll go in and explain exactly how to seam everything together. So for the Irish moss, we're going to cast on an even number, or whatever number size you're making. So this is 2, and I'll go slow here with the first few just in case this is the first time you've ever made a garment. So we're going to, let me back up and just start again. So we've made our long tail. We've got our tail in the front. We've put our slip knot here on our needle, and then we've got our working yarn kind of coming out this way. So what you're going to do is you're going to do your fingers like this, and you're just going to kind of split the yarn right here and grab. So we've made ourselves like a little gun. So what you're going to do is you're going to go under, around, and through. And I'll do that again. Bring your gun out with the yarn stretched. You're going to go under, around, and through. I'm going to do that 3 more times slowly. Under, around, and through. Under, around, and through. Under, around, and through. So I'm going to put an even number of stitches on my needle. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So let's do 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. So I've got 20 stitches here. Now for the Irish moss stitch, all you have to know how to do is a knit stitch and a purl stitch. So if you hear little clings here, I could not find my circular needles for 8mm, so I had to opt to use these straight needles. So please forgive the banging noise if you do hear it. All right, so all you're going to do is you're going to insert your needle into the first stitch. We're going to make a knit stitch first. So we go in like this. We take our working yarn, we wrap, and then I like to make sure that this needle is always touching this needle. So I just kind of hug that needle like that and slide it off. So the next stitch is a purl stitch. So I take my working yarn and I bring it to the front, And purl is slightly different. So rather than going through the back like we did, we're going to slide up through the front, okay? And we're going to take that working yarn and we're going to wrap around the front. And then hug that other needle and slide it to the back and slide off. So that is the row 1 repeat. It's just 1 knit, 1 purl, 1 knit, 1 purl. So the next stitch is a knit. So we push in towards the back, take our working yarn, wrap it, bring that needle to the front and slide that stitch off. Bring our working yarn to the front, insert the needle in the front, wrap our working yarn in the front, take your needle, slide it to the back and slide the stitch off. Take your yarn to the back and work a knit stitch. Now, if you're new, one of the tips I will tell you is wooden or bamboo needles are a little more forgiving and a lot less slippery than aluminum or metal needles. So if you are finding that you are losing stitches or you're losing your grip because you're just not used to how, the hold is or anything like that, I recommend getting yourself a pair of bamboo or wooden needles, and you might find that it's a tad bit easier to deal with. So we're just working those knits and purls. We're just knitting and purling all the way across. Really simple. And I do recommend that you make a swatch first if you're brand new to knitting and just kind of get a feel. All you got to do is cast on an even number of stitches and you can work the Irish moss. So knits and purls all the way across. Just taking turns moving the yarn from the front to the back. Really simple. And then we end with a purl. Okay, so we've got our first row done. Now this is a 4-row repeat. So for row 2, we're going to turn our work and we're going to work row 2 just like we worked row 1. So we start off with that knit stitch. So we knit the first one, bring your yarn to the front, purl the next one, knit the first one, purl the next one. See what I mean by being really simple? It's a little easier too. I honestly very rarely work with straight needles. I feel like they put a lot of extra tension on my hand. So I typically make everything, even if it's not a pattern that is worked in the round, I make everything on circular needles just because the tension is more evenly distributed and I don't feel like a lot of weight in the back part of my hand. So I would suggest investing in a circular needle set, and I will link 2 of my favorites down below. One will be more expensive if you're really planning on making and knitting a big part of your life. I definitely recommend the more expensive one because you don't want it breaking on you or anything like that. But if knitting is just more of a hobby and something that you pick up from time to time, don't feel like you need to invest in a super expensive circular set. So I'll link both of those down below. So again, it's just knitting and purling, and we end our last one with a purl. So row 1 and row 2 is an interchange of knits and purls. And hopefully you can see this, but Right here, the little V's are indicative of our knit stitches. And the one that has kind of like a little bulge or kind of a piece of yarn going like that, those would be our purl stitches. So if ever you get off and you're like, oh shoot, what was I on? Just look at what your previous one was and think, okay, I just did a purl, I need to do a knit next. You can easily see by the V is the knit and the little yarn kind of hugging the loop on your needle is the purls. Okay, so for row 3, rather than starting with the knit stitch, we're going to start with a purl stitch. So we want to make sure our yarn is in the front for that purl on that first stitch. And it's just the same thing, we're just doing a purl first rather than a knit. So we did a purl, now we're going to bring our yarn to the back and do a knit, purl, knit, and just interchanging between the purls and the knits all the way across. So hopefully you can see why I say this is a great quick make if you're an experienced knitter, and why it's a great make if you are brand new. It's really, really simple. I just love projects like this that work up really fast, and they offer just a lot of satisfaction at a quick pace because they don't take a lot of time. They're really simple and repetitive, which are always good projects, in my opinion. So we always want to end with opposite of what we start with. If you ever are ending with the same type of a stitch that you started with, you got off somewhere. So row 4 is the same exact thing as row 3. It's a start with a purl and you're going to end with a knit. So real quick, I want to show you something. So here would be the repeat. You have row 1. It's a knit 1, purl 1, and it's just that repeat all the way across. Row 2, it's a knit 1, purl 1, all the way across. Row 3 is a purl 1, knit 1, all the way across. And row 4 is a purl 1, knit 1, all the way across. So this right here is the repeat. Now, if you're wanting to make the amethyst sweater, I've done all the work for you, and I've already figured out exactly how many rows you need to do and exactly how many stitches you need to do for each size. So something that I like to do, because I'm more of a visual person, and it just helps me understand. When you go to seam, remember, you have one body panel, you have another body panel, both of which are exactly the same. Whenever you're seaming, you're going to take these two panels, lay them out, and you're going to seam some shoulders. Now, the head space right here is anywhere from 8 to 12 inches wide. It depends on how wide you want it to be, how large your head is. Do you want it to be more of an off the shoulder style, or would you like it to be more close fitting, kind of like a crew neck? That's completely up to you. So what I recommend is kind of do a rough seam and try it on your head to see, ooh, do I want it closed more or do I want it opened more, before you officially weave in any ends. Once you've got your shoulder seamed, you'll turn your piece this way. You'll take your sleeves, and obviously these are going to be, close together, so you want to make sure everything is lying flush. And you'll take your sleeve panel and you'll lay it like this, and we're going to pretend like right here is the shoulder seam. You want your sleeve panel to be squared right here with this shoulder seam. And then you could take little stitch markers and just kind of hook them in place. And then you're just going to seam your way across. And you'll do the same exact thing over here. You'll want to make sure that it's all even, like you don't have one sleeve kind of over here and then this one's over here a little bit. You want to really take the time to make sure that everything is even. And then once you've got both of those sleeves on, you're going to have like a piece that looks kind of like this. Once you've got both the sleeves on, you're then going to close your garment, as I like to say, and it's gonna look something kind of like this once it's closed. It's gonna look something like this. Obviously the sleeves will be longer, you know, and here's your head hole. So what you'll do is, starting at the cuff of the sleeve, so down at the bottom, you're going to seam your way up here and all the way down. Now, a couple things I recommend. Right here in the armpit, this can oftentimes cause issues for people. So what I recommend is taking about 3 to 4 stitch markers and going in and lining this armpit up. And then once you've got this all lined up, come down here and make sure that the sleeve is lined up, and then stitch your way, because you might have a little bit of give kind of right in here in the armpit, and that's okay. Just like within a sewn garment, sometimes you have a little extra give right here within the material, and if that happens, it's easier to hide in this spot than, let's say, right here or over here by the, you know, in the sleeve. So you want any fudges that happen to kind of be hidden right here in the armpit. So again, take your time, go slow, and make sure things are lined up really well, and you shouldn't have any issues seaming together your amethyst sweater. So I hope that this encourages you to give knitting a try. This is such an easy pattern and it's so fun. I just love how easily it works up. It's one of those, what I like to call, mindless projects. You don't really have to think about it. As long as you know how to knit and how to purl, you can totally do this. Again, all of the pattern information is linked down below, along with the scarfie yarn that I used, and also some interchangeable knitting sets that you could take a look at if you were wanting to invest in your knitting hobby or career. And with all that said, thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like this video, be sure to subscribe, and please follow me on social media and use the tag YHNmakers to be featured, and tag me too if you wind up making an amethyst sweater for yourself. Thank you again, and I'll see you guys in the next video.